My name is Robert Henke, and some of you might also know me as Monoleg. I'm happy to present this year two works of mine. One is Concert, Layering Buddha, that's based on a recording of a Buddha machine, and it's a 6-channel surround kind of thing. And the other one is a sound installation called Linear Grid. The Buddha machine is this small playback device, and this is made by a Canadian-Chinese artist duo called FM3, and they presented this for the first time at the Mutech Festival, I think 2004 in Montreal. I took one of these machines and recorded it with kind of really expensive recording equipment. It's like looking at the machine under a microscope, and with this basically high-resolution sonic image of one machine, I was able to make new loops out of the original material and copied those loops and made loops out of the loops, like reprocessing something and processing the process and so on. So at the end, I ended up with lots of sound files, which has then all layered on top of each other. And this creates a new very rich sound. And then I took this new sound and repeated the process. So this is why it's called Layering Buddha, because some of the pieces really are the result of having something like 10,000 virtual Buddha machines running at the same time. I'm really fascinated by erosion, by decay, by colors which are not one color but broken in itself. And this kind of coloration is something I found sound-wise at these Buddha machines. And all my work somehow is finding beauty within this more dusty, noisy structures. I like to perceive music as a state rather than a song structure, for instance. So what I really like on music is that it serves as a coloration of a space, that it serves as a coloration for your mood. You listen to music and your mood changes accordingly. And to me, music does not need to have lots of changes. If something's in there which I like, this can go on for a very long time. And this kind of drone ambient things are a really good way to explore music as a state where constantly things are changing, but in a very subtle way. It's like watching a sunrise or sunset. There's a lot of things going on, but at the same time, there's no dramatic cuts in there. It's not suddenly the sun is gone and there's high-rise building. Electronic music usually comes out of a loudspeaker, and in comparison to electronic music, like the music made by an orchestra is so much richer just because the fact that each instrument has a physical position, and you're listening to a concert and you experience this richness in sound just because of the different positions. And I really always try to find ways to create music which is somehow placed beyond the speakers. So really try to mix my stuff and to produce my music in a way that it really opens up a space which is, in an ideal world, much bigger than the space you're listening to music to. It's a little bit of escaping. You can have a very small apartment in the basement and you listen to my music, and if things went well, you transport yourself into a bigger space, to a more comfortable, nicer, friendlier, or maybe darker space, it depends. Linear grid came from an older work I did called Atlantic Waves, and the Atlantic Waves thing was a very simple software which allowed that a friend of mine, for instance Deadbeat, and me can make music together while we are being in different places. So it has an internet connection, and two people basically work on the same piece of music at the same time. And in order to do so, we built a very simple interface which basically works like a drum computer. You click on a few things and this creates a rhythmical pattern, and that's it. And this interface is located in two kind of boxes with flat screens. One terminal is very close to the speakers, and the speakers is one row of 8 speakers, and one terminal is much further apart. And then you can start playing with someone you know or someone you don't know, and trying to create together something which is musically interesting. Well, the software I'm involved with is Ableton Live. I'm also one of the authors of this program. And this program dramatically changed the way how people perform on stage. For a lot of people, it just made performance on stage possible for the first time. But at the same time, performing with a laptop and a mouse is something which, for me, is not really satisfying, because I really like to touch hardware and like to have a more physical interface. And the monodeck is just a pretty big machine, like this size, which does nothing but controlling the software. And this allows me to be much more spontaneous than I could be when I'm just using a mouse, because I don't need to look at the screen anymore. I guess a lot of DJs and producers are using the software because it's on the surface very simple, and the simplicity is something which people really appreciate. I try to find a balance between looking at new technologies because I'm interested in technologies, and at the same time trying to be not too much controlled by it, because a new technology is almost never an answer for an artistic question. It can serve as a new idea, but it's not a substitute for having a great artistic idea. And sometimes I think too much focus on technology is a very effective way to not create something new as an artist. So these days I really try to not look too much at new things, but instead of really think, what can I do with the things I have? I think to see a difference between different art scenes and different cities, you really need to be there for longer. So I couldn't even say what's the difference between the art scene in New York and in Berlin. Usually on festivals are have a good audience. I think this is very important too. The audience in a club, for instance, has a very specific kind of idea how a night should be. And on a festival, you have much more openness towards experimentation. So usually on a festival, you are more free to explore new things. People come to these events who are usually not occupied with electronic music at all. And sometimes this is a very interesting audience because you confront people with something which is really new. And in Berlin, usually people always say, this reminds me to X, Y, Z. And actually, I think the work of blah blah was much better. So it's to surprise someone in Berlin in a positive way. It's a challenge.